Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Malicious Compliance. Story 1. Good for the goose, good for the gander. So relatively soon after college, I moved to Washington, D.C. I was working in the hospitality industry, with my brand spanking new psychology degree, and barely scraping by. Looking for a better job, I applied for a position with a congressional committee, answering fundraising letters that had contained contribution checks. When I interviewed for the job, the guy, Wyatt, posed his last question, which was how much of a pay cut I would take off the advertised salary to get the job. None was my answer, as I was looking to move ahead financially, not take step back. He wasn't pleased with the answer but hired me anyway. Why? Because there were multiple huge USPS canvas sacks of mail to be answered, as the job had gone unfilled for 6 months. I am a pretty hard worker and I dove right into it. I came in early, I worked through lunch, I stayed late to get all that mail caught up. Took me about 6 months of unpaid extra time to get it under control. Then one day I asked to leave a half-hour early to catch a non-stop train to NYC to visit my brother. Wyatt, with whom I had a less than easy relationship with, told me I could have the 30 minutes, but he would take it off my earned PTO. I was pretty ticked off, in that I had pretty much donated about 2 hours extra a day to my job since I had started and had kinda thought that would mean something. Silly me. So I returned from NYC with that epiphany in mind. Monday morning, I was at work early, as usual, but reading a book at my desk. Wyatt comes in, early, and says he wants to talk to me in his office. I put my book down, pointedly looked at my watch, and said, "Sure, Wyatt, my work day starts in 15 minutes, so I will be down in your office at 8 a.m. His turn to be pissed. Very pissed. He asked WTF and I explained. And I noted that if my extra work meant nothing, then I certainly wasn't going to expend it on the committee's behalf. I am sure that being told this by a 22-year-old whom he didn't like to begin with didn't sit well with him. As would be expected, our working relationship only got worse. He found every way to treat me badly and I found every way to live by the rules, until I found another job. Story 2. Delicious Compliance. This happened many years ago. I was at a Starbucks, and I really enjoyed the frappuccinos they make. A few cool baristas would make me cool drinks, like a half vanilla bean, half double chocolatey chip. One day, I requested a chai tea frap. I rambled and raved about how much I love cinnamon. I think I might have unintentionally rubbed the barista the wrong way, because she dumped most of the cinnamon shaker into the mix. Her manager apologized and offered to remake the drink, but I absolutely loved it. For context, there was so much cinnamon in it that it was chewy. And it was the best freaking drink I have ever had. I think there was $6 of cinnamon in my $5.99 drink. Sadly, I learned that I'm allergic to dairy, so I avoid anything fast food anymore. I also cannot process sugars, so Starbucks drinks are a thing of my past, now. Story 3. Victim of my own absolutely under no exception policy. In my company, the employees have the habit of changing the specs of jobs without asking approval of the client or the boss, me. Like changing the material because they think it's better this way, the customer doesn't really know what they want. This led to many partial/full refunds to customers and bad reviews on Google because asked A, got B. At the nth partial refund, I wrote an angry email to everyone. From today, everyone must follow the original order form to the letter, no changes, with absolutely no exception. If customer asks A, even if it's clearly wrong, it's not allowed to silently change to B. The day after, a new customer asked A, which did not fit the media. I explained by email that A does not fit, so I will change with B. They replied, "Perfect, thank you very much, sorry, I did not know the difference, just Googled the specs." So, I updated the order form. Enter Daniel the smartass. He knows that in Italy employees cannot be billed for mistakes, even if intentional, and cannot be fired on a whim/small mistake, so he thought he would be funny to follow my instruction to the letter and intentionally made the order with the original, wrong specs. Must follow the original order to the letter, no changes under no circumstances, with absolutely no exception, he said smiling. And for the N+1th time I had to issue a partial refund to the customer. Story 4. Want spicy? I give you spicy. Hope that counts as MI, I believe it does. Prefacing that my father is an alcoholic POS, no contact whatsoever for years now. But about 20 years ago, I just got my driver's license, he decided that he wanted Diener kebab for dinner, German here, basically meat and salad and sauce in bread. But make it spicy, he demands. He'd always tell everyone and their mother, the hotter the better. So I got some cash, got into the car and drive to the next town to get it. We always ordered it with a bit of chili flakes on top. QMI. 2 parents, 3 children, I ordered 4 Diener with a bit of chili and 1 spicy. They looked at me, raised an eyebrow and did it. Marked it up for extra spice. Got home, settled down to eat and he takes 1 bite. Apparently it's hot. Too hot for his taste buds, red and sweating, demands if I don't see a problem with the spiciness, I could eat it. QMI2. I did. No problems, it tingled a bit and I couldn't feel my lips for a while, but while he had a case of sweats and hard breathing, I had none of it. Sadly it didn't stop his boasting, except when I reminded him of this incident. Story 5. Extra well done, I mean all right. During my first kitchen job, many moons ago, a server came to the back and stated that their customer wanted their burger extra well done. It was slow and I was bored, so I'll be sure to take care of it. The first step was to cook it regularly on the flat grill. Once it was overcooked and dry AF, I tossed it in the fryer for a minute, then took it out and threw it on the char grill. It flamed up nice. Then it went back to the flat grill before being plated up. I assured the waiter that I did as the customer requested, honestly thinking it would be sent back. Wouldn't you know it, the waiter came walking back to tell me that the customer had asked them to go talk to the cook about their burger. It was perfect. No one had ever cooked it like they wanted until then. Task failed successfully, I guess. I used the same technique one other time at a different job, and received the same feedback. Story 6. Karen cuts the weekend hours and then gets MC with the boss. So I have read similar things here before but thought I would share my story. Karen, my previous post was partially about her as well, was a manager of all the small departments like reception, security, stores, company records, IT etc. What I know about Karen is this. She left school at 15 to 16, worked in a supermarket. Got a job at our firm as a front desk receptionist for about 2 years before been promoted to the manager's role of small departments. She has some sort of relationship with one of company's directors. Unsure what the relationship is and some speculate uncle or good family friend. She was manager for 4 years in that role. Our company worksite has about 300 workers, 80 support staff. Karen is in charge, some technical departments and management. Karen, who is quite young and not very educated, runs the second biggest department, lots of small departments. I was the union delegate and one Friday about 4 p.m. a bunch of staff come to me and tell Karen is cutting weekend hours for the support staff in a money-saving bid. I tell them not to worry as they are all contracted to work 8 hours and the firm must pay you anyway. Come the weekend and chaos reigns. Support staff are only working 4 hours as instructed and production grinds to a slow pace without the support staff. Monday morning at 9 a.m. the union rings the general manager to ensure that staff will be paid for 8 hours even though they were instructed to work 4 hours only. Apparently, the general manager was also inundated with complaints from the weekend managers about lack of support staff causing production delays. Karen gets yelled at big time by the general manager. Karen however called her company director friend who informs Karen by been yelled at, that breached the firm's work safety rules. Karen lodges a complaint with HR. Karen is put on 6 weeks paid leave and the manager gets a warning. All the staff who worked 4 hours got paid 8 hours. Story 7. Don't want me to respond? Okay then. Sophomore English Lit class. We were studying Keats' Ode to Autumn. This instructor could wring the joy out of anything, even Keats. After listening to him torture the poem for meaning, I asked if it was possible that it was just a gorgeous day and nothing more. Instructor goes batshit, yelling about how could I ask such an inane, thoughtless, uneducated thing? How dare I speak such things? He yelled so loudly that a friend 2 classrooms heard him yelling, heard my name. Next class, instructor asks a question. I write the answer on my notebook and push it over to my seatmate, who ostentatiously reads it aloud. For the rest of the semester, that's how it worked. No one else would answer a question unless I wrote it down first. Story 8. Boss, punished, by reducing my hours but didn't tell the other boss. Edit, I meant to put me in the title instead of my. This happened quite a while ago. This story is incredibly long, TLDR at the bottom. I was working remotely for a staffing agency, organizing and managing events. When I was initially hired on, it was due to the fact that 3 employees were quitting. They all seemed to be leaving amicably to pursue other ventures, so I didn't think anything of it. They had hired myself and 1 other person to replace them and everything was going fine. Over time I started to notice little things here and there, like issues due to miscommunication between the owners, married couple, and a heavy workload. A few months in, I was assaulted and had been injured pretty badly. It was really difficult obviously, but I worked remotely so I was still able to work. I told my bosses I had an emergency and was injured, and needed to take time off. Almost immediately one of the owners called and left an angry-sounding voicemail. I called him back and ended up having to tell him I had been assaulted and went to the hospital and all that. He seemed sympathetic, but near the end of the conversation he noted that I was supposed to be managing an event that weekend, Friday Sun, and that they had no one else to manage it. He didn't do any of that but his wife did, however we always had at least 5 events we were organizing and managing at a time. I was afraid I would get fired so I ended up having to work that weekend. It wasn't so bad but I was in an incredible amount of pain, and due to my injuries the doctor said they couldn't prescribe me any strong pain medication due to complications that may arise. I worked that weekend and pushed through. Shortly after that, they fired another employee, and gave me her workload. Then they chose me to do a very long-running, 2+ months, event taking place in 2 different time zones. They initially decided the event would be split between myself and another employee. She was pregnant, it matters for context, due to the size of the program. So while I was dealing with the assault and healing, took 1 month for my injuries to heal, I was also doing the majority of the workload of this event. I was also having to plan a move, put my stuff in a storage unit, and living in a long-term sublet while I looked for a place. I was also organizing other events on top of that, so there were days where I would easily work 10+ hours. Eventually the employee who was helping me went on maternity leave, so the whole program landed on my shoulders. One day I got reprimanded for working overtime. I explained that the workload was heavy and since I was managing events in 2 time zones, I was having to wake up super early in the morning, 4 a.m., work during the day, take a long lunch, work some more, then wrap up the other event which ended in the evening, 10:30 to 11 p.m. They basically told me I needed to manage my time better. Well, I was not doing well mentally or physically, so my cognitive abilities weren't the best. I was making small, easily fixable, mistakes here and there, but nothing that was damaging or severely detrimental to the business. There were days I would just sit there crying at my desk. It was awful. Another employee had also been reprimanded for working overtime, and she was as swamped as I was. Eventually one of my bosses emailed me and said I was still working too much overtime, and that he wanted me to work only 5 hours on days where I wasn't managing the big event. I was relieved, honestly. I was looking forward to having more time for myself so I could heal. I made sure to email him back to confirm the non-show management days he wanted me to work 5 hours for the following week. Well, he didn't tell his wife, the other owner, about my new hours, and she had a tendency to ramble about stuff during meetings, making them last way longer than they needed to be. One day we had a meeting in the morning that lasted 3 hours, and it was the first day I was to only work 5 hours. I didn't even need to be in that meeting, but they forced me to stay and would get irritated if they knew myself or other employees were quietly working while listening to the meeting. After that meeting, the wife sends me messages on asking the progress of some things I was working on. She then added more things for me to do. The back and forth with her took about 20 minutes. I told her that I knew I wouldn't have enough time to finish those things that day, because I only had a little over an hour and a half to complete the other tasks I had already been assigned. She had no idea what I was talking about, so I told her that her husband had reduced my hours on non-management days, and forwarded her our email exchanges where he confirmed I was only to work 5 hours that day. She got an attitude with me and said, "Well, these are high priority things and we need you to work on them. You can go ahead and work longer today." I told her I couldn't because I had confirmed a week prior and had made arrangements and was not able to work. So once I hit my 5 hours, I clocked out, and put my phone on Do Not Disturb, ignoring all the messages she was sending me. She ended up having to work on all the tasks she had given me, late into the night. I continued to follow the new schedule and they just dumped my workload onto other employees or had to do it themselves. I eventually got fired because they said that was basically the last straw, but I was so relieved and also got unemployment benefits, even though they tried to fight it. Dr. Boss reduced my hours, didn't communicate it to the other boss, and I happily complied, causing the shit to hit the fan. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.